I get a trickle of views consistently on a video where I fixed my own crappy MeshWarp, so I can tell there's interest in learning about the use of this effect. I wanted to make tutorials for a while, so I'll start with the AfterEffects MeshWarp effect. Tutorial or other tips. TOOT. So I'll start out by saying that I think the Puppet tool is a more versatile tool for animation. I'll have a link to a TOOT on the Puppet tool down in the description, and also in the end card. Here we go. The first use I can think of for this tool is subtle flat animation. You can use it for a faux 3D effect, but we'll look at that later. Keep in mind, it isn't as good as just animating it frame by frame, but it could work for certain applications. There's also morphing, which is probably what you're supposed to use it for, and is better than animating with it in my opinion. We'll cover this too. The first example I came up with is a tree in the wind, but a banner blowing in the wind works similar. When you bring the image in, you will want it to not have excess space around the edge. Add the effect by going to the Effect tab and searching Mesh to bring up MeshWarp. Also, you can right-click, go to Effects, Distort, and MeshWarp. Either way, once it's on there, you can see there's a lot of controls that don't do anything. So we'll just delete that and bring in a cropped version. Add the MeshWarp. Now you are going to want to use the least amount of rows and columns because too many of the control points would not make for a good workflow. If you start out with only one division, you can animate the subject and add more divisions to refine the animation. I exaggerated the movement here so it is easier to see. Here's a sample scene with a more subtle movement in it. Using this tree, we can duplicate it to make a forest, but the trees are quite repetitive. So if we have some tree variants, we can select one in the workspace to replace, select the one in the project files to replace it with, and with a little Ctrl-Alt/, and boom, we swap in the next tree. A few more clicks and there it is. If we offset the timing from left to right with a longer delay on the right, we can get a more accurate delay to the wind effect. Another simpler use is to project a video onto a domed or cylindrical shape. So we have a castle here, let's make it movie night. Wrap the video around the face of the wall, and boom, projection right onto the castle wall. Now for the faux 3D thingy. I played with this robot head a little bit, so you gotta squish the end, rolling behind and shorten it a bit, then slightly larger gaps to the center, and to roll it, you go through a procession of widening and squishing gaps until it shows the other side. This is best hidden way back there. Moving on. So, morphing a face is easy, but it takes a little while. This works best with an isolated subject, to avoid needless cells. This is easier on a picture, but it works on a video, so let's go. Now we make a nice grid, and same for the second face. Now we keyframe face 1 at the beginning of our transition between the two, and face 2 at the end of the transition period. And we gotta manipulate face 1 to be close to the features of face 2. You can put opacity about 50 to see both at once. Now hop back to the beginning, try to get face 2 to match face 1. Have the opacity shift in the middle, and boom, morph. You can do this with many things. The more meticulous you are in matching the details, the better it'll turn out. But this is easier if the shot is planned out for the effect, so you can match up the subjects better. Also, combining techniques will add to the morph effect, especially when the subjects are quite different. I will add that the Puppet tool is better at this as well. Now shifting back to animation, because that's what I focus on, you could try to manipulate something like this dead tree with a MeshWarp, but compare that to the Puppet tool. That is why I think it is much better for animation. So come check out some examples of the Puppet tool in the next TOOT, right here. Otherwise, link in the description. Also, Super Fake Films, we aim to entertain.